frogs, best animals in the world, and also a play by Aristophanes. So far on my channel we have went through tragedies only, but today we are gonna change it a bit. Frogs is a comedy, and just before we start, I want to mention that one of the main characters is Dionysus. And now I have made a few videos with Dionysus and have a character design established for him, but I just feel it won't fit the Dionysus we are gonna meet in Frogs. So I'm changing his design just for now. The horns have to go, I'm sorry. Now, without further ado, let's see what the Greeks laughed about more than 2000 years ago. Frogs by Aristophanes. Here is the list of important characters we're gonna meet today. We start with Dionysus and his slave Xanthias on their way to the house of Heracles. Dionysus is doing a really poor job as disguising himself as the hero himself, wearing a lion pelt, yellow robe, and a very fashionable buskins. He's holding a club to add to the costume as well. Xanthias next to him is riding a donkey and is carrying an absurd amount of luggage. On their way, Xanthias is offering up some jokes to Dionysus, which he dismisses with the fact that he knew most of them already, and it's just bad. They bicker a little bit about who should actually be riding the donkey when they arrived in front of the house of Heracles. Dionysus knocks at the door tentatively. When nobody opens, he bashes the door with his club until Heracles himself opens. As soon as he sees Dionysus in his excuse of a costume, he loses it and starts laughing hysterically. After he is able to breathe again, Dionysus inquires him. He has a mighty urge. And Heracles, being a supporting king of a man, asks him if he has a desire for a woman or a man. But apparently that was not it. It was a strange kind of desire. Now, Dionysus explained this strong feeling as having a sudden craving for a pea soup. And Heracles is immediately like, I understand. I also crave pea soup all the time. Don't we all? With this feeling figured out, Dionysus shares that his craving is for Euripides, only that he is dead, and going down to Hades won't stop the god of drama from reaching him. He needs a good play, and everyone that lives today is just bad. So what Dionysus wants from Heracles is to tell him a way on how to actually get to Hades, and some tips for nice restaurants and bakeries on the way wouldn't hurt neither. Heracles tells him a few tips on how he can off himself for the fastest passage, but Dionysus kind of wants to make it there and back safe the way Heracles did. At last, Heracles tells him of a great bottomless lake, where he will have to pay Charon to take him across for 2 obols. Theseus apparently introduced capitalism down there. After they make it across the lake, they should make their way onto the daylight that is similar to the one on the surface, where the revelers of the mysteries reside. They will lead them to the house of Hades. Dionysus bids goodbye to Heracles, pushes Xanthias to collect his luggage, and on their way they go. Without the donkey, by the way, he ran away. Xanthias is kind of losing it, and he's refusing to carry the baggage down to Hades. Wouldn't it be faster if a corpse carried it there? I mean, it's going to Hades anyway, and look, there was one just passing. Dionysus stops the procession with the corpse and goes, "Hello, excuse me, corpse," on which the corpse actually sits up. "How would you like to take my baggage to hell?" the god of drama asks. But aha! Corpse is a capitalist as well and wants 2 whole drachmas for it, which none of the 2 can actually afford. So instead of that, the corpse just waves them away and lays back down. They have no other choice but to walk to Hades themselves. Not long after they make it to the lake and fetch Charon with his tiny boat. Only Dionysus can get on, as Charon doesn't accept slaves. Xanthias will have to walk around. Charon settles himself comfortably at the front, while Dionysus will have to oar the whole way. He protests, but Charon sets him a tone to which to oar to, and not long after we get to the animals that this play was named after, the frogs. Now, this is a chorus, and I'm gonna draw just a bit of it, but it is delightful in full. Brekekeke-kwa, kwa, brekekeke-kwa, kwa. Oh, we are the musical frogs. We live in the marshes and bogs. We sing and we swim, and our voices are known for their beautiful tone. Dionysus gets annoyed by the frogs in a bit and complains about absolutely everything there is to complain with oaring a boat with musical frogs around you. In the end, Dionysus brekekeke-kwa-kwa on them so loud the chorus remains silent, and they make it safely to shore. He pays for the boat he himself oared and reunites with Xanthias. Xanthias scares Dionysus with stories of a monster he encountered, and now that is just behind him. Oh wait, now it is front of them. The monster is changing from a bull to a mule to a woman to a dog. Dionysus actually gets so terrified that he hides somewhere, while Xanthias scares away the monster that actually never existed. He just made fun of him, of course. Just as this whole monster business finishes, they hear a flute. The Eleusian initiates have arrived. That must mean they were close to the house of Hades. They join their dance, and in a bit they ask on how to get to the house of Hades. After being told the directions, Xanthias packs their luggage and they are on their merry way. In front of the house of Hades, Dionysus knocks at the door. An old slave Aeacus opens thinking Dionysus is genuinely Heracles and starts spitting swears at him. The last time he took their dog. Then he threatens him with even more monsters that are gonna kill him once and for all, going back to the house to fetch them. Dionysus collapses down with terror. I am omitting a poop joke here for a good measure. And after he gets himself back together, he and Xanthias swap clothes and places, so when the old slave comes back, the punishment will be taken by Xanthias. As soon as that's done, a maid of Persephone opens the door. Oh, how they miss Heracles! And they should come in, and they're preparing a full roasted ox for him. And there's also a cauldron full of pea soup. And there are sweets! The maid goes back in the house, which immediately lets Dionysus beg to change back into his Heracles costume. They swap again, and two landladies come out, complaining at Dionysus how he ate all of their bread and cheese and garlic, and didn't pay, and threw his sword around like a lunatic. And guess after this encounter, who wants to swap back again? Yes, you are right. So Dionysus and Xanthias swap places again, only for Aeacus, the original doorkeeper, to come back. But now there is an issue. Xanthias is saying that his slave should be beaten instead of him, and Dionysus argues that he is actually the real god. But how do you decide which one of them is speaking the truth? Oh, I know, immortals don't feel pain. So Aeacus has both Xanthias and Dionysus bend over as he whacks them on the back. They pretend like they can't feel a thing. The tears in the eyes of Dionysus? Can't you smell the onions around? The scream of "Ah" to the prayer of "Ah, Apollo, Lord of Delos"? No sir, no pain here. In the end, the slave gave up and takes both of them inside the house of Hades, for Hades and Persephone to decide who is the real god among them. Some time passes and Xanthias is back to being a slave, talking with another slave from the house of Hades. They complain about their masters for a good bit, but then Xanthias asks, what's all the yelling and shouting about? So apparently in Hades, whoever is the most skilled at any artistic discipline, they have a chair in the Great Hall by Hades. And Aeschylus holds the one for drama. But in the past weeks, Euripides is saying that he should have the chair and that he is better than Aeschylus. To decide who is indeed the best playwright, Hades is gonna hold a contest. And who is better to judge than the god of drama himself. So they enter an arena, if you will, where Dionysus sits, Aeschylus and Euripides by his sides. Euripides starts the onslaught on Aeschylus, who remains silent. He says how he is better and how Aeschylus is just pretentious. Aeschylus fights back, calling Euripides' place occupied by beggars, and apparently they also have some unsavory topics. Before they jump on each other, Dionysus stops them. He takes a libation cup and incense and goes to the altar. Time for the contest to begin. Now, this contest has a lot of references to tons of plays by Euripides and Aeschylus. There won't be many of them in this video, and I will only highlight a bit of the actual argument that goes on. Euripides complains that Aeschylus' main characters are silent, and it's a speech after speech after speech with fancy words that no one understands. But Euripides? He writes for the people. He wrote about everyday things that audience knew about. He introduced the plot at the beginning, so they immediately know what's going on, instead of being thrown in the middle of it. Aeschylus points out that he presented heroes to his audience, so that they themselves will want to be better. He didn't put any lustful women in his place, unlike someone. Euripides encouraged young people to go to debates instead of wrestling schools. Back in Aeschylus' days, everything was better. They argue a bit more. Aeschylus repeats himself all the time, but Euripides and his verses have all the same structure. Aeschylus points that out by replacing the end of a verse of like 6 Euripides' opening lines by a lost little flask of oil. In the end, they decide to settle a matter on scales that will weigh their poetry. They stand in positions, and at Dionysus' call, they recite their best lines. If only the Argo has never winged its way, says Euripides. The watery vale of Spercheius where cattle graze, says Aeschylus. Aeschylus wins because river and water is heavier than winged its way. They repeat it a couple of times with different lines, Aeschylus always winning. But Dionysus has a really hard time deciding who is better. And to add to that, Hades tells him that the one he chooses will be able to come back to Earth. He asks them both a couple of questions related to Athens' current situation, mainly on what to do with Alcibiades, which, fair enough. But in the end, Dionysus chooses Aeschylus as its victor. Euripides is taken away raging, while Aeschylus, Dionysus and Hades enter his palace to have some fun before they have to depart from the underworld. In the end, the chair for the best playwright in the underworld went to Sophocles. Euripides stayed there while Aeschylus went out of the underworld to educate the Athens of today. The end. I'm just gonna say that I omitted a ton of references to other plays, Athenians, and other famous figures. I also didn't include any fart or poop jokes, and there's a bit, trust me. But still, I had a lot of fun, and there's parts in the play where I genuinely laughed, and I recommend you read it on your own as well. So, I'll see you next time, don't forget to subscribe, and bye bye!